Well, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone, to People's Economy Lab's Lunch Lab. We're really excited to be here today, and thank you for taking your lunch hour to be with us. We're excited to share a lot of great things happening in our community through our partners and our colleagues and our friends. And I'd like to do a quick introduction of People's Economy Lab before we get started. For those of you who don't know us, People's Economy Lab builds networks of leaders and advances projects that reshape our local economy towards one that is just, sustainable, and regenerative. And our vision is to have a multitude of local community-centered economies rooted in democracy and collective self-determination that are sustainable and equitable, and that create shared well-being. And I totally forgot to introduce myself. I'm Shiho Fuyuki, your host for today's Lunch Lab, and I am a lab leader with the People's Economy Lab. Next slide. We achieve our mission and our vision through this amazing our team. We have Jaguna, Derek, Laura, Mary, and Faduma, and we do this through three different programmatic areas, and that is collaborative governance and well-being, community wealth building, and movement building. Next slide. Oh, and there's our team. Next slide. So today I'm going to be sharing a little bit more about the Community Wealth Building Program. And so what is community wealth building? It's an economic development model that transforms local economies by giving communities direct ownership and control of their productive assets. And this is a definition provided by the Democracy Collaborative, and we believe that community wealth building combats negative impacts of the racial wealth gap, concentrated ownership, community disinvestments, attacks on labor, environmental degradation, and structural social and racial injustice. And our purpose here is to advance a just transition to a solidarity economy, and community wealth building can develop alternative economic institutions, approaches, and relationships to shift economic control to communities. Sorry, next slide. One of the programmatic areas mentioned earlier is this CWB program, and our mission here is to advance economic justice by empowering communities, especially BIPOC communities, with direct ownership and democratic control of productive assets. And we do this through educating and building awareness of community wealth building strategies. We enable and activate community and worker-owned projects and catalyze institutional change that embeds equity and redistributes power. Next slide. During coming out of the pandemic and in response to demonstrations for Black Lives, the Seattle City Council commissioned a report to identify how the city of Seattle could address the racial wealth gap. And for nearly 2 years, in partnership with the city's Department of Neighborhoods, Headwater People, People's Economy Lab, and community stakeholders engaged in a participatory research process called the Generational Wealth Initiative. And People's Economy Lab identified community wealth building as a framework for transforming our local economy and 6 strategies that best worked within our local context that had the strongest alignment with the guidance we received through our local BIPOC communities. And those 6 strategies are listed here. Broad-based worker ownership, affordable and community-controlled capital, community ownership of real estate, progressive procurement, equitable small business ecosystems, and wealth retention and asset building programs. And today we'll be leaning into the wealth retention and asset building program strategy, which are comprehensive intergenerational programs designed to reduce the rate of real property loss by BIPOC communities through education about their property and innovative options to leverage their assets. This strategy aims to address displacement and historic redlining, racial covenants, and housing discrimination in Seattle. Wealth retention and asset building programs focus on advancing economic justice for people of color by providing robust and restorative human capital support that removes traditional work silos and fills gaps created by structural racism in the dominant economy. And in today's Lunch Lab, we'll hear from Caleb Jackson and Myron Curry and their shared experience in fighting displacement Caleb is the founder and executive director of Resource Equity, and Myron is a local artist with murals all over our community, from the Central District and Midtown Square to Belltown and Fremont to Auburn to Skagit Valley. Hopefully, you've seen his murals across the community. With that, I'd like to introduce a quick video provided by Resource Equity to tee up today's presentation and conversation. I don't know if the volume's working.
There isn't any sound coming through for me.
I think you have to press the more and then press share sound.
Is the sound, let me try again. Can you hear the sound now?
Yes, thank you, Mary.
We are with Resource Equity. Our North Star is creating generational wealth for legacy homeowners, right? The wealth part is everything that it takes to make a community healthy, thriving, happy, and importantly, resilient, right? The generation part is how do we get those metrics to go down in the generations, right? Too many times in our community, houses and wealth is lost as soon as grandma dies, and we don't want that to happen anymore.
Exactly. There we go. There you go. Yeah.
Beautiful video. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to Caleb Jackson, who will introduce and share his personal story.
Hello, everyone. Let me see if I can tee up this share. Yeah, 1 second. Got it all lined up. 1 second. I have a presentation for you all. I know that we're supposed to have a conversation, so it's a little bit of a more condensed version, but it's just some of the things that will kind of align you to what our program's goals and philosophies are. Can you guys see the presentation? All good? Okay.
We have the presenter view.
Presenter view?
Yeah.
Still presenter? Try one more time. How about now?
There we go.
Okay, great. Let's get started. So, hi, my name is Caleb Jackson. Again, I'm the executive director of Resource Equity. What our organization is about is restoring community pillars and really building generational wealth for legacy homeowners. As I said it before, I define all four of those words. The wealth part is what it takes to make a community happy, healthy, and resilient. The generation part is the stewardship. It takes stewardship to make sure that those assets don't get lost over time. And then the legacy homeowner part, those are the people who are in our community who have lived, worked, played, and worshiped in the community for decades, and ensuring that them and their descendants get to do that for much, much longer. I'm not going to talk too much about the history of some of the practices that have got us here, which are like redlining, racially restrictive covenances, things that made Seattle a sundown town. Also, most of us know all the stats that confirm that the wealth gap exists. The two stats that I am going to talk about, one is that right now the Black households have 8 times less wealth than their white counterparts. And the other one is that the Central District used to be 80% Black and had about 3,000 Black households. Today, that number is 8% Black and there's about 800 Black households. Um, and so we're going to talk about something else. We're going to talk about me. That's me right there and my grandpa. This is the corner of MLK and Othello, and this is kind of like how resource equity got started. And really, depending on what side you're on, villain, hero origin story. So my grandpa passed away in 99, and he bought this property for him and my uncle bought this property. And then my grandma, she fought, she lived a lot longer, triple bypass surgeries. Family would come in thinking that we need to get our affairs in order, and she would just fight. Um, Eventually, she passed away in 2016, and I had the bright idea of, hey, let's develop on this property. Since my uncle wanted to sell it. And he didn't know anybody at that time. I was work optional. I was about 30 years old. I owned 7 properties across King and Pierce County. And so I was, rubbing shoulders with some influential people. And I said, hey, let me talk to some of them. They didn't know I owned property. They thought I was just a kid from the neighborhood, but I wanted to talk to them. I had this vision of what to do with the property. It was fuzzy because I knew flipping, but I didn't know development. Um, it was at that time that I seen how development worked. There was essentially a community who was there. You had these middlemen who would try to extract as much out of the property as they could. Then there was the banks who would obviously get their cut, and the developer who took most of the risk would get most of the money. I went to a developer and I told him about the property, which I knew was worth about 900,000 because the property that we share a fence line with sold for that much. He looked at the property and then sent me an email and said that the property is worth $150,000. I thought he might have been mistaken. I called him. I said, hey, let's make sure we're on the same page right by the light rail station, zone multifamily. And he doubled down and said, it's worth $150,000. If you can get your uncle to sell it to me, I'll give you $1,500 as a commission. And that was the first time I had seen this amazing industry that had done so much for me in my life and essentially retired me at 30 years old as what it was, which is very extractive. Um, and really, we seen that as the first big problem that we needed to solve. The second problem that we needed to solve was the fact that I have 8 uncles and aunts on that side of my family. Stay with me. If you ask all 8 of them what my grandma said to do with the property, you'll get 8 different responses. Every time the family came in to see my grandma, there was all these stories about what she wanted to do, and none of it was written down. One of my uncles said the property goes to the grandkids. Another aunt said it goes to the immediate kids. One of my uncles said, hey, I'm broke, the property goes to me, right? And so the second problem that we noticed was there was no stewardship, right? So understanding the value of the property and having a stewardship plan. And that's a problem that our community has to look within to fix. And so with those 2 problems, we started Resource Equity Association to address those. We got started in 2016, just giving consulting. In 2022, with the Generational Wealth Program with the City of Seattle, we started talking about a pilot program that could address these things. We got funding for it, double the scope, work with 10 homeowners at that time. To date, this number is wrong. I forgot I went to with the previous slide. We've preserved more than $10 million of wealth in the community. And we partner with some amazing organizations, which I'll go through briefly later. And that's what we've done so far. What we want to do is we want to grow wealth by $1.2 billion in the community. And we're doing that behind our slogan, our call to action. And I'm going to let people go off mute. Does anybody remember how many homeowners in the Central District in 1980? The number? Come on.
8,000? 8,000?
Close, 3,000, right?
Oh.
So that's our slogan. Back to 3,000 by 2035. That's what we're trying to do. That's what we aim to do. We do this through our flagship program that we do, besides our events, is with coaching. The coaching has three prongs. The first prong is the homeowner, the most important part. What does the main stakeholders, how do they see their golden years going? Are you like one of my uncles who just wants to walk around Green Lake 5 times a week and have a family dinner? Or are you like my dad who wants to go to the coast and be around blue space and has arthritis and needs some heat, right? What does that mean? What does your later years mean for you? The second pillar is the family. There's resources in the family. We work with families who have put 3 kids through UW, right? We work with families who the dad has been entrepreneur, the mom has had a steady job, and they're trying to figure out how retirement goes. Maybe they have a son that has some substance issues, right? But what does that family look like, and what does it mean for the overall goal, as well as what programs might align to this family, right? Are you looking for affordable housing? Are they under 80% AMI? What does that look like? And then the third is the easy one. What is the value of that asset? What is the highest and best use? And when we say highest and best use, we don't mean, how big can we go? We want to know what is the highest and best use for that family. I always tell this story that really exemplifies what that means to us. Miss Mary came to us and she wanted an ADU next to her home so that one of her kids could live there. She knew that once she got a little bit older, she would need help. She had just got done doing that for her mother. And so she was like, I don't want my kids to have that burden. We looked at the property. It could do 16 units. Talking to Miss Mary, that wasn't really in line with what she wanted. What we figured out that she could do is she could do 4 units, one for her and one for her 3 kids and her 9 grandkids. And that way she can welcome her grandkids home when they're home from school. And when the time does come for her and her husband to need a little bit more help, she doesn't have just one kid next to her. She has all 3 of them, right? So reducing that family burden. And so that's what we call that family's unique wealth vision. That's what each family member gets at the end of our education. We try to also make sure that things other than assets pass down, right? Oopsie, I did something. Oh, we're back. We want to make sure the community has transitional housing solutions, community leadership and guidance, cultural preservation. We want to solve food insecurity, health and wellness advocacy, and then also supportive network. There's no place else you get that than going to grandma's house, right? And so if we can hold them up, our dream is that they'll hold the rest of the community up. That's why we call them our community pillars, because they've been that for so long in our community. When we first started this, I think this is important. I added this back, Shiho. I think it was important to talk about. When we started this work back in 2022, our idea was just to surround the family with estate planners, lenders, just get them around those people that they don't have access to, and this will get them to stewardship, and getting back to that beloved community. What we realized is that it's a lot harder than that. How do you explain architecture and structural engineering in a SIP to 70 and 80-year-old populations, right? What does it look like to figure out what the family needs as far as like a stewardship plan, wills and trust? How do you explain sewer scopes, right? Estate planning is on here twice because it's that important. We're talking about money and family at the same time, right? It's hard to do that by themselves. And then if you understand real estate, you know that it's much more than a design process. It's closer to a finance exercise. And so understanding lending and holding that vision and communicating that in a way that makes institutional capital feel safe. And again, we do this all to give the family foundation and legacy. If you know about my family, you'll see that beautiful woman in the brown coat. That's my mom. She's my foundation. And if you know about construction, you'll see that we're getting ready to pour a foundation for an ADU, right? And then legacy. Legacy is a lot more than just the house that you see in the bottom. Legacy is that little guy in the red coat, which is my son. We want to make sure that we incorporate both sides of things. These are our partner organizations. They give us the ecosystem that we need, from boots on the ground to capacity building partners, to lenders helping us, to the developers who can give us that insight on how to create this. Really proud that all of the developers, except for one, are Black-led organizations. And this is one of our projects that we're going to be talking about today that you just saw a video about. I'm not going to do a spoiler, but this is one of my favorite programs. I'll let Myron talk about the project and how where we started at as far as like working on this reverse mortgage and then where we're at now. But the two numbers I will say is that our goal was to first preserve the $250,000 of wealth. And now what it's looking like is at the end of the project, we'll have created on top of that $1.2 million of generational wealth for this family. So yeah, I think that, oh, last thing. And this is kind of our theory of change. If you invest in the families, that investment in the family creates and benefits culture, and that culture permeates through the community. Let me know if you have any questions, but that's a little bit about me in the program, and I'll let Myron, talk about the story of what we've done so far.
Thank you, Caleb. Really great presentation and sharing of your why of why you do this work. Very meaningful work. And I'd like to pass it over to Myron to introduce himself, share with us who you are and what's led to where you are today.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Myron Curry. Like they said, I'm my career is art, but like that's probably like 10% of what I do in my daily life. My grandpa's 94. I take care of him, and I had a goal when I came home to, save his home and make sure he can age in place and just make sure he has the best life he can have. You know what I mean? Like that man done everything. That I mean, when you say a day's work back then is not the same as a day's work today. And I got to see that and was kind of raised in that manner, So the least I could do in my mind is to make sure that, he just has everything he wants, you know what I mean? And able to not be worried about, if he's going to be able to live here for the rest of his life, or if he can even be housed for his life or whatever. And but that was like a no-brainer, of course, you know what I mean, that I'm going to do. And it just extends to my community because there's so many other seniors and people that don't have a grandson or don't have somebody or don't know, you know what I mean? And they don't know the resources, they don't know, you know what I mean? So that kind of dove me into that because I was limited financially. And along that journey, which was a beautiful journey and still is a beautiful journey, which got me connected with so many organizations and the people, right? And I always say this, is the people, it's you guys that make the organizations great. It's not whatever's written on the paper or the plan, and all the missions are good and the plans are good. But the prison system has those kinds of plans on the wall, and people die every single day, and it's not like some of it could be very prevented. You know what I mean? For the doctor or whatever. But so, anyways, along that journey, I met Caleb, and to be honest, I don't know any organizations that I haven't worked with or that I don't know of or I haven't researched. And his organization was the only one still now that I know of that actually, and I'm not saying nothing negative about any organizations. I'm just stating the impact and the facts, right? Any help is better than no help, and I feel like it's kind of hard for people to create an impactful program or plan when they don't know. You know what I mean? Like I can't do a plan for no billionaires because I don't know what that life is like. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard for people in different status or environments in life to try to make a plan for us, and you don't know what it's like over here or whatever. So but the beauty of resource equity is, for one, is the personal and custom aspect. When I met Caleb, I met him a few times, and we've been in community and organizations and meetings and stuff like that. And came here to my house or to Grandpa's house and talked to us. But the important thing was, like, he asked us what we wanted to do and what we seen our future looking like how what we wanted, right? And all the other places and all the other plans and organizations and stuff, it's always usually, we can keep you in here, but you need to sign your property over or put it in some community uh, trust fund or something, basically where you don't own your house no more, and then they end up owning it when you die or whatever. And I'm not saying that's terrible. I'm just saying that that's not helping generational wealth, and that's not that much different than a reverse mortgage, except for you don't get no money. You know what I'm saying? Which, I mean, so that was amazing. And I was trying to find a plan. I couldn't, I mean, I was struggling, you know what I mean? I was paying every single dollar and dime that I had. I have companies, like my art business, and I do some eBay stuff, and you know what I mean? And I hustle. I mean, I've worked hard, but compounded interest on 500,000, 700,000 is ridiculous. Like, you can't, I don't care, unless you can make maybe 150, 200K a year and put that in there. You not can't put a dent in it because the interest is compounding. That meaning, like, I'm sure you guys all know, that the interest goes into the principal every month. So if your say your the balance was 550 and the interest this month was 5,500, right? So next month that 5,500 goes into the balance. So now the new balance of principal is 555. You know what I mean? Thousand. So so now your interest next month is 68,000. Or 6,800. You know what I mean? So anyways, it was frustrating, to say the least. You know what I mean? And as knowledgeable as Caleb is, and how much he just for real sacrifices his time, from his family, his financial, situation. He's out here helping people, and he don't get paid for that. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I think that I do the same thing. And when I tell people, hey, like, I mean, you need to make sure you take care of yourself, make sure you look out for, because you can't help nobody if you are not at your maximum capacity. If you wear yourself down, ain't nobody you can help, and I'm really be also saying that to myself. I'm reminding myself as well, so the plan we came up with was to build the ADUs to help, to income wise and equity wise, to be able to get out of the reverse mortgage, and make sure that he could age in place. And we've been doing great. And today they came and put some fencing around these trees. So I'm happy, because that means that we about to get started. And yeah, I'm open to more questions. I just don't want to occupy all you guys' time, but I could keep going and getting more detail, and because it's a passion. It's passionate for me. It's love and family, and the most beautiful thing that I look forward to is knowing that in my heart, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, that my grandpa would be okay. He don't gonna have to do no reverse mortgage. He's gonna be all right, and he don't have to worry about nothing. The secondary thing is, I really love what Caleb is doing with resource equity, and I look forward to being able to help and use this experience to help other community members, link with resource equity and watch them flourish and kind of not be so what's the word I'm going to use? Intimidated about the processes, but most of all, having someone that will listen to you and figure out with you what a solution could look like and how you could reach the goal of the future that you see for your family. So.
Thank you, Myron. I remember meeting you, I think, 2 years ago or 3 years ago in this GWI initiative. And you came in the meeting and said, I'm here to save Grandpa's house. And today in 2025, you have fences going in, and I love that. I love this for you and the work that you're both doing with Caleb. And one question that maybe myself and others may have might be, what was this process like? I know there's challenges, I know there's opportunities, and I think what you also have is grit and not giving up. So how were you able to work together to save your grandpa's house? And I guess one other thing I'll mention is I love, Caleb, how resource equity is really starting with what is this vision for your family versus putting you in a box of here's the technical assistance that we have available for you, but really working with the homeowner and the family to identify what this vision could look like for your property. And so can you share a little bit more about sort of that process that the both of you went through to be able to come up with this idea of placing an ADU on the property?
Absolutely. And we're not done yet. So the house ain't saved yet. Like I feel like when we did the groundbreaking, like people were like, aren't you excited? And I was like, yeah, we just getting started though. We got like and I don't even want to say it's just a black person's view, but like, you know what I mean? But like any
Right.
person that just is striving for something, like until you cross that finish line, I look, I'm staying focused. You know what I mean? I'm happy we're making progress. You know what I mean? But to be honest with you, which I always am, I'm just transparent by nature. Man, what I've felt with Caleb has been the foundation of me being able to do the things and push the pieces and do all the crazy, and I mean crazy by being like researching and learning how to, work with underwriter management and risk analysis teams and lawyers and all these people. And I'm not knocking anything, but I don't know if it's just a lot of
Yeah.
people are in positions where it makes it really frustrating and challenging. And then, where you have to know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But luckily in technology today, we're allowed that access, you know what I mean? But with this process, it's been very fulfilling, and I've felt, and I still feel um very safe. Just like I feel good, like I'm not worried. You know what I mean? Like the building part and all this part, everything as far as with Caleb and resource equity and even more has been able to allow me to survive and breathe. Like literally, if it wasn't for him, I probably would have then had a heart attack trying to do the purchase stuff. You know what I mean? Because trying to do that plus this and manage all is just too much. And then not really knowing a person that speaks your language or just regular to kind of explain things so that way you can navigate and get a fast track on some of these different departments of what all is involved, because there's a lot of moving pieces when you're trying to develop or if you're trying to purchase or trying to do, it just is. And Caleb has been right there when I'm frustrated, even personally, and I'm just thankful.
Yeah, so with development's hard, right? And you can't shield people from that. But there are things that you can do to help, right? And I think the number one thing that I always say is like with this program, it's you have to understand who you're working with. Is why we do so much groundwork with that. Um, but then you also have to understand how do you empower them, right, to feel comfortable and feel safe, right? And so like one thing we always say is we hold the vision of the family and we hold that vision and then help them communicate that to the other disciplines. Um, one thing I'll let Myron talk about it. He was so frustrated when he called me one time. I think it's hands down the most frustrated he's been, is he was asking a loan officer like, uh, how does this work? Like, what do I need to say to do this? And they were like, we don't know, right? It's what goes on your taxes. So we talked to this tax person. What do I need to do? And they're like, I don't know. What does a loan say, right? And so then it was like, well, how does this cost, right? And what is like special about development, that's different than other programs, is it's not like they build on each other. They work interconnectedly, right? And so you have to make sure that your architect doesn't draw something beautiful, which all architects want to do something beautiful. They do something practical, right? So that it makes financial sense. And that financial sense is communicated to the lender, and that their taxes that they're getting ready to do aren't taking a super huge loss. It makes it looks like you have no money, because then the lender says you don't qualify for this, right? And so how do you orchestrate all these moving pieces with the vision that we've already talked about? And Myra can tell you about it, because he calls me and he's just like, they don't know. Nobody knows what to do. And I'm like, they know what to do in their cycle. Like architects know how to draw, right? The lender knows how to read taxes, right? Your tax person is going to get you the
Personal
biggest
taxes.
discount, right? Personal taxes. They don't know about business. They might not know about the specific loan products you need, right? And so it's you have to hold that vision and empower them to communicate that. And he was frustrated because he called me. He was like, I can't, nobody knows. I can't figure it out. But we had a conversation for a couple hours, 2 hours, and then it was like he was still frustrated, but he at least knew a pathway forward. But development's tough. There's people who are seasoned developers who do this for a living, that this keeps them up at night. But Myron goes, right? So and I'll say this last piece. Some homeowners we work with, it's we go slow and we talk and we go slow and we make sure they understand, and we go eat a elephant one bite at a time. Myron was like, I've learned 20 weeks worth of stuff in the last day. What do you think? And I'm like, well, that's right. That's not right. This is there, but he can just go, right? And so you're really just supporting. You don't need to like lead that. You're just in a supportive role. And he talks a lot about me, but he's been amazing in this process. He knows it. He'll tell you the story. He calls me, he's frustrated, and I'm laughing at him, and he can kind of finish it after that. But it's just a process.
Yeah, I remember that. I always take those times into account, right? Like I always tell myself, sometimes you got to say, okay, we're gonna cross that bridge when we get to it. You know what I mean? Or things like that, you know. Um, but yeah, the frustration, and I remember Caleb laughing, and I was like, what is funny right now, right? And he was like, you're becoming a developer, and this is the only way. Like this is how and he was right. Like I had to research and learn more than the lender. I had to research and learn more than the underwriter. I had to research and learn more than and I want to say not more, but things that more stuff that's gonna work for me, right? Like they're gonna tell you no. Okay, I'm gonna research it. Then I'm gonna see what the guidelines are. Then I'm gonna see what restrictions are. Then and if I find something, I'm gonna say, hey, why you told me no when it says this? This is the law. This is your restrictions. This is your regulations. This is the policy. What's going on? Like this is, oh, well, where you found it? It don't matter. This is what it is. So and they didn't know. So you know what I mean? And it's like, but again, we can't be frustrated. I'm happy we found the information. Now, if you don't know, let's bring it to your management team and let's talk to them, because I will go all the way to the top, to the owner of the company, to your
And
investors. Yeah.
he has, right?
I
So
mean, I would go all the
it
way.
is, hey, this is the regulation and we need to be passed. And we were right? So yeah, it's part of the process.
Yeah.
Another question I have is, what were some of the resources that were available to save Grandpa's house? I know maybe this is a question for you, Caleb, in the sense of, technical assistance through the Generational Wealth Initiative. I know you started uh, um, resource equity, and then there were some CRP funds. You're part of a list cohort, and there are a lot of other partners and organizations that really supported this process. Can you share a little bit more about that?
The first thing I'll say is that this is new, right? Generate talking about generational wealth in a way where it's palatable for people is very new. When we started this process, I don't want to say there was no help, but there was no help, right? There wasn't a lot of people who were gung ho about it. But now the organization you talked about, they have started coming around and they are supportive. With this particular project, they didn't play. Um, the CRP played the biggest role. Originally, when we started this, we got in a really good position because when we started this work, uh, we were going to go at this as purely for profit, build the houses. We needed to sell them. We had to pay off this reverse mortgage. It was, I think when we started working, it was $620,000, right? And he was right, 5,000 a month, every month, right? And there's a ceiling. Once it's that ceiling, then game over, right? And so we had to get rid of it. Now, when the CRP was announced and started getting awarded, we were already halfway through pre-development. And so
Sorry,
uh,
one clarification. Can you define CRP?
uh, was it, no, I think I
Is
mispronounced that. It's the
it
covenant. No, what is it?
community reinvestment?
That's it.
What's
Yeah.
program from the
Community
Department of
Reinvestment Program
Commerce?
from Commerce. Yep. They released, so what it was they had um an allocation of $200 million to give out to people who were affected by the war on drugs, right? Which is another great thing that I'm glad this project is happening because Myron is a principal um, person who was affected by the war on drugs, right? The had that not gone on, Myron might not have ever been locked up, and the grandpa might have never got that reverse mortgage, right? So this is definitely corrective action. Um, but when that funding got announced and some of that money was going to ADU Dadu creation, we were already midway through pre-development and put ourselves in a really good position to be to be the first homeowner breaking ground with that capital. So, so that was the main resource that we utilized. LISC has played a role in resource equity immensely. They are working with another project that we're trying to do. And other organizations are starting to get involved, right? I think there's been a lot of like support from other organizations, right? And spreading awareness, you guys as well. BHI has helped. And I think that there are some financial ones coming along too, right? Because that gets the program going. But it is still this creating understanding and awareness that generational wealth helps communities and not just in a monetary way, but with, you know, um, you can look up the wealthiest counties in Seattle and see that they're also the healthiest, right? They also get the best education. There's many other factors that play into generational wealth and why it's so important to restore that to communities. So, yeah.
Thank you. Another question for the both of you. When talking about the racial wealth gap, specifically around power and agency, how does this model that you've developed seek to restore both of these?
Can I
I could,
if
you
okay,
got
go
it,
ahead.
right? I just thought that would be, you want me to do it?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I'm gonna start with agency. Um, One question we ask a lot is like, have you ever tried to do something else, right? Have you ever tried to do this before? And people are always telling us, yeah, we went to the bank, but they said, hey, we should just sell it. Or they got us in contact with a developer and they came to the house. And so lenders, developers, and one of my mentors has talked about this at his graduation speech, but people see the community as partners with a little p. They don't really see them as like partners who have a voice, who have agency, who want to do something, who have value, right? And that has to stop. Another story, 'cause I tell a lot of stories, is Joe. He told a story about when that happened to him and he got in contact with the developer, and the developer said he was going to do with the property, told him everything, showed him all the numbers, and then Joe said, "Hey, I want to be a part of it, right? I want to do this, right?" Kind of essentially our model. And the developer said, "I'll get back to you." And he came back and then told Joe, "Hey, talk to the partners. We don't want a third party on this." And then Joe said something back, which like really shows, what kind of agency the community wants. He said, "Me and my family, we're the first and second party. You're the third party, right?" So that's the role you have to, and that's the role we are, right? That's the role that resource equity plays with these homeowners. We are the third party, right? This is your property. If you've seen this, the shirt Myron was wearing at the groundbreaking, it says wealth equals ownership. We want to maintain as much ownership as a family wants to keep, right? Because that's how you have that power and agency. Our opinion on it.
Last question for me, and then we'll open it up to those on the call. What's next for both of you?
Well, I'll say immediately I got 3 events this weekend, and one tonight. So I'm gonna be a little burnt. But I just want to get this done, but not at a fast pace, but at a great quality pace. And then we're not just quality as the work that we're doing, and that's being performed, but also in the relationships that we're building. Like I look at this more than I think that, sometimes people don't realize, and maybe even Caleb too, is that within our relationship that we've developed, he's become like a brother to me, um, and he's younger than me, and I'm learning a lot, and I look up to him in that aspect, you know what I mean? And I never think about it, but I'm like, dang, he's younger too. I'm like, man, you know, he's doing so much, and but it's not just about the building stuff, right? It's also about like the personal stuff about, like taking my phone call when I'm frustrated, or us building relationships and me getting to learn, um you know going through bids, working with GCs, working through lenders, and these things that um I would still be working on right now. You know what I mean? Like those types of things are developing um my education in development, and our partnership is really growing to like family. I really can't even say it any different. And the crazy thing is that along this journey, it's been like that. Like I got like friends that are like family now from the city of Seattle, from different organizations, and because we're not only trying to build up, but we all live here. Like we live in, we're like normal people, and we got jobs, and we can identify what just ain't right. Like, and I don't mean like, oh, this could save us some money. I mean like that just ain't right. Like, well, I don't care how you cut it, what you do, that don't sound right. And do you explain it where one person says this sounds right? Like, I feel like there's always stuff that, regardless if we don't have the same religion, political stuff, whatever, that we could agree on. Like, we don't have to agree on everything, but like killing, okay. I could take a whooping, you know what I mean? I could take whatever, but you don't gotta kill, you know what I mean? Like, if all we was asking for is, like, say, police to stop killing unarmed people, period, but especially Black men, that's not a big ask. You know what I'm saying?
Myron, you're muted from having. You just cut
You,
out.
you can hear me?
I got you now,
Yes, you're
yeah.
back.
Okay. It was the passion that got too high. But you know what I mean? It's not a lot to ask. You know what I mean? And I feel like everyone, even someone that hates you, could agree, like, well, yeah, okay, we probably shouldn't kill the person. It would, then you end all the fun of them doing all the bad stuff they doing. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like everyone has to be able to, there's some things that can be like, hey, that's not right. You know what I mean? That's for nobody, and I feel like that's a start, you know? Um, so uh, yeah, I just I'm thankful. I'm very thankful.
Yeah, and I'll say, it we do become like family. So my kids, I'll tell a little story again, all these stories. My oldest was yelling at my youngest about writing on the walls, and you're like, nobody can ever write on walls, right? You can't do it. And I was like, yeah, that's true, but technically somebody can, right? Don't speak in absolutes. You can't write on walls. And so, I don't know if you guys can see it, but I took him to Myron's mural and like let him watch him write on walls, right? And literally that was the only thing. We weren't talking about, I think we talked a little bit about real estate, but it was really just to go see so they can teach my kids a lesson, right? And so it has become like family, and that's with, the strategy that we try to keep. So I want to second that. And then answer your question, what's next for us? So this project with Myron is really important. We have some other ones who are in the pipeline, late Q1 and early Q2, right? That could be breaking ground. And so those are also really exciting. Spreading awareness about it is super exciting. Um, the housing is one thing, and I told you about the value, but the second thing is also really important to us, and that is the stewardship plan. We were just given a grant by the city of Seattle to enlarge that scope. What we do now is we're not lawyers, right? But we do want to make sure that the family has a written down um, stewardship plan, right? And so that if you do go to a lawyer, you have all the information there. Who do you want to be your trustees? Who are your beneficiaries, next of kin? Let's talk about it. And so what we've been doing the last 2 years is just giving families that, making sure they had that. Myron didn't get one because Myron already had a trust, right? Which is great. But now with this new grant, we'll be actually able to make sure most of the families we work with under 120% AMI get some get a trust, right? So that is an actual stewardship plan, legally binding and funded trust. And so we are piloting that in the new year. I think that's one of the most exciting things we're doing, right? Um, and so I'm really happy about that. And anything else that's really exciting? Yeah, there's some other partnerships that are brewing. So I'm excited about those as well. So yeah.
Congrats on the grant award and piloting. That's really exciting. I know we only have 2 minutes left, but if there is anyone that has a burning question, please feel free
I think there
to
was one
either.
in the chat.
I put one in the chat. I want everyone to understand, do you only work with families or do you also work with organizations such as churches or other community organizations? And can you tell everyone how to get in touch with you if we have other families who may benefit from your program?
Yeah, so www.resourceequitywa.org is how you can go on there. We have a place to book an appointment and a place to like opt in and share your story. We do work with other organizations. We've worked with churches before. We work with individuals who it's just them, their family has passed away, so they're the only stakeholder. The process is similar, right? It's just really understanding the vision, understanding what can happen, and then just working through that process. So I think that was your question, right?
Yes, thank you.
No problem.
Great. I'm going to close us or wrap up, and you can see Myron and Caleb's contact information. I want to thank everyone for joining us and also emphasize how long this work takes and how relationships and trust, building trust in all of this matters. And so we're in it for the long haul, and we're just grateful. People's Economy Lab is grateful for partners like Myron and Caleb and others who are really doing amazing work in our community. And if you'd like to stay in touch with us, please sign up for our newsletter. There's also a QR code to donate if you're in a position to be able to do so, not just to People's Economy Lab, but also to Resource Equity, as well as I know Myron has a great online web shop if you're looking for holiday gifts. So please check his website out as well. I want to thank both Myron and Caleb for joining us. We also have, for those of you that are still on, we also have a happy hour this evening in the Central District if you're able to join us. Would love to see you there from 4:30 at Metier Brewing. Um, and yeah, feel free to contact us if you have any questions. And I think there will be an event survey going out after this. So with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you again next year with our virtual lunch labs.
Last thing, that money came through Bird Bar and B4E, and Homesite also helped. I forgot to mention them, and I felt bad about it. So I want to also say, like, takes a village.
It really does take a village.
It does.
All
And
right.
Office of Housing helped too.
It really takes a village.
It does.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Hope I didn't forget anybody.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye.